Knowledge for Men, episode 31.
Welcome to KnowledgeForMen.com, where boys turn into men, where men turn into leaders, into lions, the ferocious few who stand strong, a place where you grow to become the man you were born to be. It's time to take massive action towards the life you want. Get the health, get the relationships, business, and career you've always dreamed of. Achieve a level of success and happiness that you've been searching for so many years. Life has given you enough, and it's time to take a stand and take full control of your life. Stand with us as we interview the most inspiring and successful leaders to give you real-world advice to crush life and awaken the sleeping giant inside of you. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download today at kfmbook.com. There's over 100,000 titles to choose from for your smartphone, tablet, or computer. It's a perfect way to listen to your favorite books in the car, in the gym, or at home. Check out kfmbook.com to start learning in your downtime.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. This is your host, Andrew Fairby, and today's episode is going to be about your health, and specifically your diet. And I know what you're thinking right away. You're like, this episode isn't for me. I want that business stuff, or I want that relationship advice stuff. But let me tell you, you can't neglect your health, because if you don't have your health, you're not going to be able to enjoy all that hard work that you put into that business or that relationship, or all that money that you spent on seminars and workshops and books for your growth. So don't neglect your health. I think it's extremely important, and it is almost the bedrock of everything. If you're not healthy, you can't really do much else other than sit in bed. All right, so let's bring on our guests. I'm here with Paul Jaminet. A little background about him. He studied at Harvard, MIT, and UC Berkeley. Paul's experience overcoming a chronic illness in his life taught Paul the importance of diet for health and motivated him to share what he learned in 7 years of research in his book, The Perfect Health Diet: Regain Health and Lose Weight by Eating the Way You Were Meant to Eat. All right, Paul's going to teach us how to become healthy with the foods that we eat. So what he learned in 7-8 years, we're going to learn 40 minutes. Let's jump in. Paul, how are you doing?
Hi, Andrew. It's great to be with you. I'm excited too.
All right, and as always, let's go right into your favorite success quote and why.
Well, mine would be from Jesus, actually. He said, "Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all the other material things that you seek will be yours as well." And I've always tried to live by that, and I think it works very well for leading you to a fulfilling life. I've always tried to earn my living in ways that I'm proud of, that are beneficial to other people and virtuous, and seeking knowledge for myself through science, or building companies that would benefit people, or sharing things that I'd learned, like how to be healthy by eating good food. So at various times I've sacrificed some money to do what I thought was right, but I've always enjoyed everything I was doing, and I can say I'm very happy with how I spend my time and how things have worked out.
All right, Paul, now go ahead and share with the audience a little bit more about yourself and what you do and your story.
Okay. Well, my health history actually goes back to birth. So my mother was actually diagnosed with cancer while she was pregnant with me, and I had all kinds of illnesses. In my first years of life, I was in and out of hospitals with chronic ear infections, and had some unnecessary surgeries to remove immune parts to make it easier to breathe. And those alleviated somewhat, but I always had some problems. I had terrible acne as a teenager and well into my 20s. I ended up getting a year-long course of antibiotics and Accutane in order to deal with the acne when I was in my late 20s. And those brought about very significant health problems, and they just kept getting worse and worse every year. And by the time I was in my late 30s, I was starting to lose my memory, lose productivity. I had lost a lot of physical fitness and ability to exercise. So I was getting really worried. I felt prematurely old. And I ended up in my 40s deciding that I just had to start focusing on health and fixing things. And I reduced the amount of time I devoted to work and started focusing on learning how to be healthy. And that took me quite a while. It's really been an 8-year journey at this point, but it turned out to be very fruitful. And it took me about 5 years to figure out my own health problems and also to fix my wife's health problems. She had a lot of serious health problems. And then we felt that the things we had learned were be very valuable to many other people. They were of general applicability, how to eat a healthy diet, what's a nourishing diet, how to live a healthy lifestyle. And so we decided we had to write all those things up because no one else had come to the same conclusions we had. And so we wrote them up, wrote a book, and it's been tremendously successful from a health perspective. So thousands of people have written us telling us they've experienced improved health. And recently, last year, we started a program of health retreats. And every single person who's been to the health retreat has experienced improved health, and some of them totally transformative health improvements. And so it's been really exciting. We really hit on something that makes a huge difference, and we're very happy about that. We feel much younger ourselves. I'm 50, but I feel like I did in my mid-20s. So we're very optimistic that we can look forward to very long, healthful lives and keep going and enjoying life for many decades to come.
I like that. And so 8 or 9 years ago, when did you have this aha moment, or when did you realize that, hey, this is an area of my life that I need to take care of? Like, what was that specific moment like?
Well, I had known since about age 29, since I had the antibiotics and Accutane, that my health was getting worse every year. Just while I took the antibiotics, I was a runner, and my running times went down dramatically just while I was on the antibiotics. And, so I knew they did something bad to me, but I didn't really understand it. My doctors weren't helping. And every year my health got worse. And so for the next 15 years, I just go to the doctor every year and say, "Doctor, I'm feeling worse. Do some tests, or try and figure out what's going on, or help me." And basically, I never did get any real help from the doctors, but I had no idea how to proceed. So transformative moments, I would say the first thing that happened was we tried Chinese medicine in like the traditional way, where you get the original plant parts and bark, and you make a tea out of them, and you filter the tea through a coffee filter and drink it. And that actually had some positive effects, but it also made both my wife and I have very significant negative effects too. And actually there have been some studies that Chinese medicines are a frequent cause of liver damage and some other issues. But anyway, that sort of turned a light on for me that, these were basically plant. They look kind of like food. Tea is like a food. And so I was thinking, maybe instead of thinking about medicine, I should be thinking about food. So that shifted my approach to thinking about diet and food, but I didn't know much about diet and food. And I didn't really believe in any of the standard approaches to diet or nutrition. There was nothing that struck me as, oh, this is likely to be helpful. But I was starting to pay attention to it and to links. And then in 2005, I came across a link to the paleo diet. So I checked that out, and it seemed like an interesting story. The evolutionary story that for millions of years we were hunter-gatherers who would hunt wild animals and collect wild plants. And that was our natural diet, and we should eat our natural diet, and that would help. And so I decided to try the paleo diet. And that, again, made a tremendous difference. There were some very positive effects, and then I had some very negative effects. So the first aha moment, was trying the paleo diet and seeing that it would have a big effect. So then I knew, diet was the thing I had to pursue. I had to figure out how to optimize diet, because medicine had no effect, but diet did have an effect, and so it mattered. And then I just had to optimize diet, and it took me a while. There were a few dramatic aha moments in that. One of them was I started out too low carb, and I got a big health improvement when I added starches back in. And then I eventually realized that I was vitamin C deficient. And when I started supplementing vitamin C, I had a huge improvement. So those sorts of experiences taught me a lot about the need for a balanced diet with lots of different types of nutrition, and also to tend to micronutrients like vitamin C. So when I realized I was deficient in vitamin C and needed to supplement it, then I started going through every micronutrient and trying to figure out the optimum amount one should get for health, and figuring out what I might be deficient in, and finding foods that could provide it, or else, if it wasn't easy to get it from foods, to get it from supplements. And that took another 2-3 years to go through all of the literature on micronutrients and figure out the optimal amount. But over time, my wife and I worked out, what became the perfect health diet. And every time I improved nutritional quality and balance, then my health improved. And then we also started working on lifestyle, on things like exercise and circadian rhythms. So another aha moment, we moved my office from a room that got plenty of sun to a dark room, and with very little natural light. And my health got worse. It took me a little while to realize it, but then I realized that circadian rhythm entrainment from bright light is very important. And so that started another course of research and optimization of lifestyle. So the whole effect has been, there have been a number of aha moments, but it was a very gradual process of changing focus from things that didn't matter, like pharmaceutical drugs, to things that do matter, like diet, and then gradually improving them.
Okay, so you've been testing different diets that have existed, just different healthy ways of eating for several years, and this evolved into the Perfect Health Diet. So let's go into that. What makes it the Perfect Health Diet?
So the design of the diet was to optimize nutrition. So you can be malnourished in two ways. You can have a deficiency of a nutrient, or you can have an excess. And most nutrients become toxic when they're in excess. And if they don't become toxic directly, they can harm you by providing food for infectious microbes. So microbes need to eat too, and they use a lot of the same nutrients we do. And so when you have an excess of nutrition, then you'll promote infections. So it's very important to get the optimum amount of every nutrient and to avoid any of the harm from deficiencies, but also not get an excess of anything. And it's of how we designed our diet. And we also wanted to eliminate toxins from our diet. So a lot of plants make natural toxins that are harmful to human beings. And one of the advantages of the paleo diet, starting from a paleo template, is it's a relatively low toxicity diet. So working from natural whole foods, but excluding those foods that are most toxic is really helpful. So then we also use only cooking methods that don't generate toxins. So harsh cooking methods at very high temperatures are another way that a lot of toxins get generated in food.
Are you talking about fried foods?
Frying, barbecuing, anything with very high temperatures will tend to produce toxins in food. Anything that burns food is going to be a problem. So you want gentle cooking methods like boiling, steaming. So it's much better to simmer meat, stew, or a curry than it is to grill it over an open flame. And you get a lot of smoke, you get a blackened surface. Those are toxic compounds on the surface of the meat. So, so our diet is designed to minimize toxicity of the diet and to optimize nutrition. So that was the goal. And then when we did all those things, then we found out our diet was really delicious. It looks like gourmet food. It tastes like gourmet food. It's really tremendously satisfying. It's the same proportions as classic French cuisine or classic Thai cuisine, Chinese, Japanese. So the gourmet cuisines of the world are pretty close to the Perfect Health Diet. And at first that was a surprise to us, but then we realized that our brain, our natural taste preferences must have evolved to make us healthy. And so if you're making your food out of natural whole foods like were available in the Paleolithic, then mixing them together in the most delicious combinations is going to be the most healthful. So, that was a great discovery. So it was very pleasing that our diet would be extremely healthy, but also delicious and very satisfying. I would say our diet, if you think of classic French cuisine, but without wheat products and without sugar and with a little more diversity of ingredients and flavors from around the world, then you'll have a pretty good idea what it's like.
All right. And so what are some examples of cooking methods that are harmful? And then what are the cooking methods that you would recommend?
Yeah, so beneficial cooking methods are generally anything that doesn't dry food out, where it still remains moist, is good. So, and typically starches are much more sensitive than other types of food. So, generally speaking, starches, you don't want to get above the boiling point of water. So, it's good to cook starches like rice or potatoes in water. Meat, cooking at the boiling point of water is also excellent. You can go warmer with meat, you can fry meat, but you should use low heat. And basically, the smoke point of oils, like if butter starts to smoke, then you're too hot. So anything that will start to burn an oil or the food ingredients in oil will also damage meat and generate toxins in meat. So just stay below the smoke point of oils and don't blacken meat, don't generate smoke. You'll be good.
Okay, and so if we ignore your advice and continue to cook at these high temperatures and smoked meats and steaming oils, what can happen?
Well, that's really sort of an underexplored area of research, but I think we're gradually learning that the effects are much more significant than people have realized. So the gluten-free movement has really taken off the last few years, and that's because so many people have realized that their health improves when they cut out wheat. Wheat has a large number of toxins compared to other foods. There have been lots of studies recently fingering soy as a problem. So, for instance, people are at much higher risk for cognitive decline and dementia. So there's all kinds of evidence that these natural plant toxins can be a significant problem for health. So medical doctors and researchers have mostly focused on the acute effects of these toxins. So if they don't poison you immediately, then they don't worry about them. But we're gradually learning that the chronic effects of just getting regular doses day after day for decades can cumulatively have a huge negative effect on your health. And so, for instance, people who are gluten sensitive have like a 40-fold higher rate of lymphomas. So these plant compounds can have big effects. And similarly with the toxins produced by harsh cooking methods, there's growing links of those compounds to cancer rates and other things. So I would say there's lots of evidence that chronic health problems are related to toxicity of the diet. And there's also growing evidence that nutrient deficiencies matter a great deal also. And chronic nutritional deficiencies seem to significantly shorten lifespan. So there's lots of reasons to believe that these factors are important. And there's a lack of awareness of how important diet, both on the nutritional side and the toxin side, can be for health.
Absolutely. I think we do pay very little attention to nutrients that we put in our body, especially in the long term. We're just thinking for that instant gratification and not really thinking about where this is going to take us 5-10 years from now, which obviously can end up being a disease of some sort. So let's just recap and then let's move forward with a perfect health diet. So far, it sounds like you want to optimize the amount of every nutrient, and you can actually get sick from too much or too little of a nutrient. And you also want to eliminate as many toxins as you can from your diet. I mean, that just sounds bad, toxins, and we're feeding ourselves these toxins. So can you give us more examples of what these toxins are and how we can avoid them? And also what else is involved in the perfect health diet?
Yeah, well, toxins, the main sources of toxins are natural plant toxins. So plants, they can't run away and they can't fight, so they defend themselves with toxins. And most of all, they defend their seeds. They need to survive in order to reproduce. And mostly they want to protect their seeds against digestion. So they make digestive inhibitors in the seeds. And digestive inhibitors are toxins. They suppress the functioning of our bodies. So they're intended to suppress the functioning of our digestive tract. But if they get in our body, they can suppress every other part of the body too. Those are major sources of toxins. So it's really the seeds, especially the seeds of grasses and legumes, because those grew up in grasslands where there were grazing mammals. So they made toxins specifically that work against mammals. But almost any plant is toxic if you eat enough of it. So there was a case not long ago of a Chinese woman who nearly died from eating too much bok choy. So if you eat very high doses, especially if you don't cook your vegetables, then you can poison yourself.
Well, how about with like spinach, kale, and broccoli?
Yeah, well, the key thing is to diversify your vegetables. So you don't want to eat too much of any one vegetable. You want to get a variety of different vegetables. So don't eat kale every day. And it also helps to cook your vegetables. That detoxifies a lot of toxic compounds. And it also helps to eat some of the ones that are earlier in life. But baby spinach might be a little less toxic than mature spinach. So I would say, but cooking vegetables is helpful, and then just diversifying, because it's the dose that makes the poison. There's many toxins that just won't harm you if the dose is low. And actually, there's some evidence for what's called hormesis, hormetic effects, meaning that if you get a low dose of a toxin, it actually benefits you because it causes your body to turn on DNA repair and stress response molecules that clean up a lot of issues, not just protect against the toxin that you ate, but they also protect against all kinds of other issues. So getting a diversity of vegetables is good. And then gentle cooking methods and avoiding industrially processed foods, because factory produced foods tend to use the most toxic ingredients. They tend to use very harsh cooking methods with dry heat that generate lots of toxins. So unfortunately, most packaged foods in the supermarket are not very safe. And the best thing to do is to shop around the edges of the supermarket to get natural plant and animal foods and cook for yourself.
Okay, that's good. And I want to dive into common myths that people are doing for their health that they think is good for them, but is actually hurting them in the long run.
Well, there's a number of them. I would say now, one thing that comes to mind is we came out of the paleo world, and that tends to be a low carb. And I would say one thing I've learned is that people are often very attracted to extremes, like extreme diets. So if you look at our Amazon reviews, the people who have actually tried our diet, they nearly all give us 5-star reviews. But then we get a whole bunch of 1-star reviews from vegans, vegetarians, and a few very low carb dieters who don't like the idea of a balanced diet. And I was like that too when I first started our diet. I really wanted to have an extreme diet, and I wanted to be doing something different and to have discovered something different from what everybody else, my own special way to health. I think that was a bad mistake, and gradually led, both by my own health experience and by the science, toward a much more balanced diet. So I would say that that's one myth, is that you have to eat an extreme or an unpalatable diet to be healthy. People don't realize that the most healthful food is also the most delicious food. So I mentioned gourmet cuisine as a great example of how to eat in a healthful way. So it's a myth that you have to deprive yourself in order to be healthy or to lose weight. Another myth, or a thing that people don't realize, is that when they eat can matter as much as what they eat. So it's very valuable for health to practice intermittent fasting, to extend your nighttime fast and restrict eating to maybe 8 hours a day. And it's very valuable to restrict your eating only to the daytime. So don't eat anything after the sun goes down. And then finally, I'd say another myth is that the way to get yourself healthy is to go to doctors and get medicines. And really, the effective way to improve your health is through good food and a natural lifestyle. And that's probably the biggest myth of all.
Okay, so let's say you are healthy, and I just want to get your idea about supplements, because they're so popular. It's everywhere you go, there's supplements for every little thing. What are your thoughts on supplements? Yes or no?
Yeah, well, the supplements that we recommend are the ones that are either most difficult to get from food and lifestyle. So we have a kind of unusual environment. Like, it's hard to make vitamin D. Your body makes vitamin D from sunlight, but people have to work during the day. They don't get as much sun as they should. And then we also have our water is treated. So natural water has a lot of minerals, but we don't get those minerals now. And similarly, a lot of our food, because it's produced agriculturally, the soil becomes mineral depleted, and that means the plants become mineral depleted. So unless they restore nutrients with fertilizer, then agricultural foods tend to be deficient in nutrition. So it's actually easier to be deficient than people realize. So some supplements can be beneficial. The ones most likely to help: vitamin D, because we don't get enough sun exposure; magnesium, which would ordinarily have gotten from water, but now it's the treated water doesn't have it. Lithium is another one we don't get because of water treatment. Then iodine. People don't eat enough seafood. They don't eat it regularly enough. Zinc. It's hard to get enough zinc, and a lot of people become deficient. Vitamin C, particularly anyone who's ill, will generally be vitamin C deficient. So infection, stress, all of those deplete vitamin C, and most people will benefit from supplementing vitamin C. And then there's various others that are quite helpful, but most of the rest you can get from food quite easily if you eat a balanced diet. And then the things that are most dangerous, I would say folic acid is probably a major problem, especially in pregnancy. So getting too much folic acid really disrupts gene regulation. And it turns out that what pregnant women really need is choline, which is found in egg yolks and liver. So people really should eat more liver and eat more egg yolks or fish roe or some other source of eggs. But because people are choline deficient, their babies have neural tube defects and other problems. And people realize you can slightly reduce the rate of neural tube defects in a choline deficient mother by giving her more folic acid. But it turns out that may cause other problems as well. And what you really should be giving her is more choline. And the folic acid, we started fortifying foods with folic acid. Prenatal multivitamins have huge doses. So the optimal amount of folate is really only 300 to 400 micrograms a day, but it's not uncommon for pregnant women to get almost 5 times that or more because of the fortified foods and the prenatal supplements. And that really distorts gene expression, and it may be a contributor to certain health problems in their children. So I guess I'd pick folic acid as one that people don't realize is a risky supplement, and many people are getting too much of it.
And what are your thoughts on multivitamins? They have all the vitamins and minerals. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think most multivitamins are well designed. Most of them are designed to give you 100% of the RDA of everything. And that's really not what we need. And especially if you're eating a balanced, natural, whole foods diet, it's really better to get nutrition from food if you can. And a good diet will give us amount of most nutrients. And so you really shouldn't be supplementing most nutrients because, like I said, an excess of nutrients can be harmful too. So it's actually better just to supplement the specific nutrients that you're most likely deficient in. And that can also allow you to adapt to your own personal diet. So if you don't eat liver or egg yolks, then you're going to need certain nutrients that you wouldn't need if you ate those foods.
Okay, and let's just go into the benefits of the perfect health diet and what are the side effects if people don't follow this diet?
Yeah, well, I would say it benefits every health condition that we've tested it against. So I mentioned that we have these retreats. Every person who came to the retreats overweight has lost weight. And we only had one person who came underweight, and she gained weight. And everybody improves their body composition. Everybody loses inches from their waist. Everybody improves biomarkers, inflammatory markers go down, lipids normalize, blood glucose normalizes. A lot of our retreat participants have done before and after lab tests in order to see the changes, and they've always been positive. But we also see people improving their sleep, improving their mood, improving their energy. I mentioned some of the improvements were transformative. The very first woman who came to our retreat, she was scheduled for 2 knee replacements and a hip replacement. She walked with a cane, she took pain medication, and by the end of 30 days, she was off the cane, off the pain medication, and no longer needed the surgery. And she kept improving, and a few months later, she took a job as a gardener. So she had difficulty walking, and a few months later, she was able to, do a quite physically demanding job. And she sent me a photo later. She looks like a bodybuilder now. You know, she's in her 50s. She had really well-developed muscles. And anyway, so that was a great story. A big surprise was how rapidly people lose weight. It's half of the obese people have lost 20 pounds or more in 30 days. And so I would never have expected you could lose so much weight so quickly. But if you just optimize everything, then your body very often just wants to go back to the optimal body composition. And so that's been a big surprise. We've had huge improvements in sleep and mood and energy. Blood pressure tends to normalize pretty quickly within a few months. So we haven't found health conditions on which there are no improvements. Some conditions are cured completely. Some, are just ameliorated. Everything improves. And in general, athleticism improves, body composition improves, strength improves, people feel better. Joint issues tend to clear up very quickly. So generally speaking, arthritis tends to go away. And the other thing I would say is that nearly everybody who's come to the retreat has gut issues, and those improve dramatically. And so there are lots of effects. In terms of feedback we get from readers, I would say weight loss, eliminating cravings, eliminating hunger, feeling very satisfied with food, building a healthier relationship with food. And another very frequent report was that I cured my migraines. And it turns out we were always wondering what type of people would be drawn to our diet. Well, it turns out people with migraines, they're fully capable. They're capable of reading a diet book and coming up with steps to improve their health. And they're very highly motivated by their pain. And, once a few people with migraines figured out that their migraines would disappear on our diet, these were people who had been trying to fix their migraines for 30, 40 years. Started spreading the stories. We just had a whole bunch of people with migraines take up our diet, cure their migraines. So I would bet lots of other things can be cured as well, but the migraine story was very interesting and a surprise. So it had at least 50 migraine cures reported to us.
And headaches are usually those things that you people have for decades. It's something that they take all these drugs from different doctors, and it's really just pain relievers of that drug, or it knocks you out, but not really solving the problem. So through diet, it seems like you're able to solve all different types of ailments in people. And just my understanding is that when you're lacking in nutrients, or when you're overeating certain foods, and putting toxins into your body is telling you in the form of a disease or in the form of obesity or acne. It's physically telling you that there's too much of something or there's too little of something.
Well, there's a lot of pathways, and actually I think probably the biggest cause of ill health in most people is through chronic infections and bad gut bacteria. So we have large numbers of microbes and bacteria and viruses and other things within us. And what happens when you're malnourished is a lot of the nutrients people are most deficient in are critical for immune function. So they're sabotaging their immunity. And then a lot of the things they're getting in excess are very nourishing to infectious microbes. And so they're promoting infections. So people who are eating these diets high in sugar and bread, pastry, donuts, but very little micronutrition that supports immunity are really promoting chronic infections, promoting growth of bad gut bacteria. All of that is inflammatory. So the immune system isn't working well, so the body has to stimulate it with all these inflammatory compounds to say, hey, immune system, work harder. And so you have a lot of inflammation, you have a lot of injury, and that affects mood, it affects energy. But then once you start improving things, once you take away the excess nutrition that feeds infections, you provide the immune system with all the support it needs to work optimally, you give a good lifestyle that also supports immunity, then you can roll back a lot of these infections. If you eat a good diet, that supports our beneficial bacteria, and they fight on our behalf against bad germs. And so you can make a huge improvement very quickly by creating a better ecosystem for beneficial good bacteria. and a less good ecosystem for the harmful bacteria that harm our health.
Okay, and why do you think doctors are so quick to prescribe antibiotics or different forms of drugs versus first, looking into that person's diet or looking, into their nutrition and see like what are they lacking? Like what can they naturally just start eating to fix themselves? Why don't they prescribe your book?
Well, actually, more and more doctors actually do recommend their book, and we've had a ton of readers, especially in the last year, come to us and say, I bought your book because my doctor recommended it.
There we go. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah, so I think it is the future, and it's also the past. So Hippocrates, who was the father of Western medicine, said, "Let food be thy medicine." So it's coming back to old wisdom. I think what happened is that after World War II and in the 20th century, we started, for the first time, we could produce all these engineered foods. We could create all these purified nutrients like starch, sugar, oil, and then recombine them in new ways and create new industrial foods. And so we got away from natural diets. And we also, in science, we developed all these methods of understanding biology and learning how to tweak it. And so we started this pharmaceutical drug era, and people just placed very high hopes in what they thought of as science. But it turns out that it's very difficult to find pharmaceutical drugs that get rid of a nutrient deficiency or that get rid of a nutrient excess. And there has been very little work on antibiotics or on pharmaceutical drugs that promote good bacteria like fiber and good nutrition do, or pharmaceutical or antibiotics that selectively get rid of bad germs but keep the good germs. So instead, we have the things that are in a doctor's toolkit are really things, for the most part, the easy research to do. My wife is a scientist and cancer researcher, so we know a lot about how the research is done. And the easy thing to do is not to remove or address the actual causes of disease. It's to modify some aspect of human biology. So if you look at popular drugs, they're like, what do they do for acid reflux? They suppress production of stomach acid. What do they do? What did they do for my ear infections when I was a baby? They removed my adenoids and tonsils. And so if you think of sabotaging functioning of a body or removing body parts, imagine if your car was malfunctioning and you took it to the mechanic and the mechanic said, oh, well, the way to treat this dysfunction of your car is to sabotage the function of the fuel line, or to remove the carburetor, or remove the radiator. What are the odds that that would really improve the functioning of the car? But those are the kinds of tools that doctors have been given to address disease. And they take out body parts or they sabotage body parts. So unfortunately, medicine as it's currently practiced, it really took a wrong turn about 60, 70 years ago. And it's really been slow to realize that things it's done are ineffective. So we really need to get back to diet and lifestyle and figuring out how to remove the genuine causes of disease rather than trying to figure out some magic way to alter how the body functions in the hope that that's going to alleviate symptoms.
Yeah, and the fast food industry isn't going to help as it's, increasing, and just different corporate brands that are promoting maybe not healthy products like Coca-Cola or Pepsi, who have other lines of other products like chips and stuff that really just aren't benefiting people, but, they taste good temporarily.
Yeah, well, I think it also works the other way. So in the United States, we spend $2 trillion a year on healthcare. And most of that money is largely wasted. And, there are much cheaper ways to achieve much better results. And I think cost has gotten so incredibly high that there are a lot of people looking for alternatives now. And, so I think there are going to be big changes in the years ahead.
And the key word there for me was alternatives, which for an entrepreneur is opportunity for other companies to really promote and sell things that are good for people. And I think an example of this would be a company like Whole Foods or Sprouts, or just your local farmers markets that are sprouting up all over and providing organic, healthy foods. And now it's time that we enter the knowledge round. This is my favorite part of the show. Are you ready?
Yeah.
For you, the listeners of the Knowledge for Men podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their awesome service. And you know what? Something I've noticed after interviewing hundreds of successful people is that they all read a ton of books. If you want to be successful, you've got to educate yourself. I don't always have time to sit down and read a book, so I personally recommend listening to audiobooks in your car, in the gym, or on the go. You can pick up for free any one of my favorite best-selling books like How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, Awaken the Giant Within by Anthony Robbins, Mastery by Robert Greene, Choose Yourself by James Altucher, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, or any other audiobook you want. Audible has over 100,000 titles to choose from. To download your free audiobook today, go to kfmbook.com. Again, that's kfmbook.com for your free audiobook today. Start learning, growing, and becoming the man you want to become now. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime.
All right, Paul, how would you explain the perfect health diet to a newcomer?
All right. I would say it's all about being well nourished, eating natural whole foods, and making your food delicious. So think of gourmet cuisines, but substitute ingredients for more healthful ingredients and learn to cook for yourself, and you'll be all set.
All right. And Paul, what was holding you back from having the health that you have now today?
I just had no idea how to be healthy. I think, we used to have all kinds of knowledge, but I think the growth of science and technology changed our diets, changed our lifestyle, and people forgot all of the ancient lore and wisdom, and they put their trust in science and seemingly science-based medicine, and that turned out to be a false idol. So the big problem that holds everyone back is they believe in too many things that just aren't true. And they think they know too many things that just aren't true, or they don't know what's true. And so I didn't know how to be healthy, and I had beliefs about how to be healthy that were mistaken. The places I thought were the places to look for knowledge were the wrong places to look.
All right. And what's the best advice that you've ever received from a mentor?
Oh, well, I don't know that I've ever received really good advice from a mentor. I mean, I've gotten a lot of advice that would be good for most people, but maybe not for me. So just to think of one example, I was a very successful scientist. So, I had a position at Harvard and with the Smithsonian Institution, and it was essentially a tenured position. So I could have lived indefinitely, earning an excellent income and with a very prestigious job. But I decided to leave during the internet boom to start a software company. And when you leave science, it's very hard to go back. The director of the Harvard Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics actually named my leaving Jaminet's folly because he thought it was such a dumb decision. But anyway, it was, and it turned out financially it probably was a dumb decision. I would have made a lot more money if I stayed in science. But in terms of my life satisfaction, I think it was a very good decision. So people have lots of good advice, but I think you always have to step back and say, is this the right advice for me or the right advice for other people?
Okay, and what's one action one person can take right now that would get them closer towards a healthier life?
Well, I would say intermittent fasting is very helpful. I would say circadian rhythm entrainment in general, exposing yourself to bright lights during the day, dim red, yellow lights at night, getting good sleep, getting exercise during the day, and doing a 16-hour fast overnight. So maybe that's more than one thing, but they're all connected to entraining your body's natural circadian rhythms, and that's really crucial for health.
Very good. And can you break down your philosophy on good health?
My philosophy more and more is you should live like an animal. The animals, wild animals, really live healthy lifestyles. They have no choice. They have to eat natural whole foods. They have to live in the sunlight during the day and live in darkness at night. They have to get exercise. So if you live like an animal, you can't go too far wrong.
Live like an animal. I like that. All right. And do you have any parting piece of guidance for the thousands of listeners today?
Well, I would say read our book, and it's actually, if you like science, it's very entertaining because figuring all these things out is like a detective story. And you get to, by reading the book, you can follow all the fascinating detective story, but get to the solution with much less work than it took my wife and I. And it'll pay dividends for the rest of your life.
Yeah, that's one thing I love about books is it took someone their entire life or a decade, a long time, at least to write the book, and you can consume and learn all of that information within 2 weeks, at most. Like you can read a book even faster or Audible in just a few days.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it took us 8 years to figure all this out and write the book, but you can read it in a week.
So Paul, what are you currently working on right now?
Well, I mentioned these perfect health retreats. So we're actually going to be moving them to a beachfront location with a first-class group of people. So I'm really excited about them because not only because they really help everybody who participates in them, it's also like bringing people into a clinical trial type environment. And so they're really helping us document that these things really work. They really do cure health conditions. So I'm really looking forward to proving that our diet and lifestyle really is the best medicine. And another thing I'm working on that's connected to that is the Ancestral Health Society has started a scholarly journal called the Journal of Evolution and Health. And I'm one of the editors-in-chief. So I'm back into the science world, but now in the health field. And I'm planning to publish some case studies of retreat participants and other readers and, start documenting these health effects for the scientific and medical communities. And so I'm really hopeful we can make inroads into the scientific and biomedical consciousness and really help people to understand what are the true causes of disease and how can we eliminate them and enable our bodies to heal themselves and maybe start making a really big difference.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Paul, go ahead and give yourself a plug so how the audience can connect with you and learn more about these retreats.
All right. Well, people should come visit our website, perfecthealthdiet.com, and read our book. And we're going to have a number of new products coming out this year, including a video lecture series of classes and how to be healthy. We'll have mobile apps, we'll have a cookbook, and we'll also have the Perfect Health Retreats at a luxury location on the beach. And so if you want to improve your health, there are many ways we can help you do that.
Okay, Paul, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing some of your life lessons, your challenges, and a lot about the Perfect Health Diet and helping our guys become more healthier.
All right. Thank you very much, Andrew.
All right, and there you have it. That's going to wrap up episode 31 with Paul Jaminet and the Perfect Health Diet. And guys, if Knowledge for Men has helped you in some way, share it with your friends. I mean, I don't make money from the podcast, really. It's really just about you and your growth and us as men just developing ourselves to become the best men that we can become. So if you have some friends out there that you think could benefit from this podcast and you've been a listener, share it with them. Just send them a message and shoot me a message too. I'd like to hear from you. I'd like to hear your story and how, the podcast or what you're going through and how it's all kind of come together. My email is andrew@knowledgeformen.com. I'm genuinely interested in your personal development and I'd appreciate a share.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast show. It's been a pleasure having you be a part of a thriving community of men who want to crush it in all aspects of life. I'm on a mission here to inspire millions of guys, and with your help, we're going to make a dent in the universe. Check out knowledgeformen.com for a ton of free content that's designed to help you live a remarkable life. Again, that's knowledgeformen.com. I hope to see you there. And always remember, 2014 is the official year of the crush, where we take action to get the life we've always dreamed of. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, and until next time, let's do it.